In June 2026, the 64th session of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change Subsidiary Bodies, SB64, took place in Bonn. Over the course of 10 days, representatives from governments, the scientific community, international organizations, and civil society came together to discuss the world's most pressing environmental challenges and possible solutions. Special attention was also given to preparations for COP31, which will be held in Antalya, Turkey. On the sidelines of SB64, the ALLATRA media team conducted a series of interviews with delegates and experts from around the world. Their insights provided a clearer picture of how global climate processes are affecting different regions.
Climate change is a very complicated process. It interacts with biodiversity, ecosystem service, and human society. The most change I want to make is to raise people's awareness about that. Try to change our behaviors, to change our attitude to addressing climate change.
Considerable attention was also devoted to plastic pollution and the risks associated with microplastics and nanoplastics.
Yeah, it's already becoming a big crisis at this moment. I was reading an article even this morning, like probably we eat 1 credit card amount of plastic every day, and people are completely unaware of it. I believe it requires a lot of public campaigning because, yeah, some people knows about the implication, but most of the people in the world, particularly who are living in the global south, they really don't get it. Yeah.
It's really important for us, especially, the coming generation and the youth to understand the ill effect of microplastics and what it is happening and what is it doing by coming inside to our body. It is really important.
This issue extends far beyond scientific discussions. Experts emphasize the importance of public awareness and engagement, noting that the effectiveness of efforts to reduce plastic pollution depends largely on people's understanding of how environmental contamination occurs and how microplastics spread.
We don't look at all the bad. We have kind of normalized consuming microplastic, and the consumption what we are having in India, that is like to the next level. I mean, even in my body, there would be a lot of, if you just if we scan it properly, and not just microplastic in food and all. And also, I think the nanoparticles in the air also, that is also, destructing our body.
This issue is directly connected to the health of aquatic ecosystems. According to participants at SB64, plastic pollution and climate change are affecting rivers, marine environments, and biological resources.
Some of the rivers are almost biologically dead because the amount of microplastic what we have in the river is you cannot even imagine the level. Like if the normal ranges are 100, we have in 1,000. So it is also affecting fishery and other animals, and then we consume fishes. So at the same time, it all comes together at the end to you only. You see Bangladesh, India. 10 years back, we used to talk about future. What future will be with the microplastic and all. These were fancy terms, but then now it has become a ground reality. And then we are living it already. And then future would be even, I think, devastating if we are not going to address these issues and do something about them. I think, yeah, there's no future. We are into it already. And slowly it's getting higher and higher, and then we are also shortening our life expectancy in India. I personally take my motivation from Laudato Si, the encyclical of Pope, and Laudato Deo. Coming from a country like India, where you have all sort of climate challenges and you have all sort of illness, and then you have a kind of starvation when it comes to climate change. So there, the need and the hunger to do something for the climate change becomes a very important, necessary tool.
According to the participants, effective solutions are impossible without changing society's attitude toward the environment.
We want to live a better life, but not harming our future generations. They should have the same right as us. So we want to perceive and pass everything we have here today to the generation, to our son, grandsons, and we want them even live better than us. It's not only depend on the technology advance, but also on our attitude and our behaviors.
My own personal opinion, or our opinion on this, is the fact that we need climate actions now climate action needs to be now, and it needs to be people-centered and people-oriented. It needs to take consideration of the future in mind while taking the actions, not some fake solutions that does not care about the future.
SB64 marked an important milestone in the lead-up to COP31 and provided a platform for dialogue among countries and organizations. The negotiations in Bonn reflected a wide range of approaches to addressing climate and environmental challenges, reaffirming the continued commitment to international dialogue. In the face of global challenges, international cooperation remains a key factor in finding effective, long-term solutions.
When we talk about plastic pollution, we almost always picture something we can see. Plastic bags on the shore, bottles in the ocean, landfills. But perhaps the most important part of this story almost never makes it into the picture. Because the most destructive processes begin not when plastic lies beneath our feet, but when it disappears from sight. When plastic breaks down to micro and nanoscales, it stops being just trash. It begins to act like a completely different type of material, an active particle where the decisive factors are no longer familiar shape or mass, but rather its unique properties, including electric charge, which facilitates the interaction with everything around it, including humans. In soils, they interact with plant root systems and microbial communities. In aquatic environments, they interact with plankton and marine organisms. In terrestrial ecosystems, they affect insects, birds, and animals. Passing through food chains, micro and nanoplastic particles become integrated into bioaccumulation processes, altering the very conditions in which entire ecosystems exist. This critical issue is explored in depth in the landmark report, Nanoplastics, a systematic risk analysis for human health, ecosystems, and the environment, prepared by researchers at the ALLATRA Global Research Center. This report compiles the data from 597 scientific sources dedicated to micro and nanoplastics, making it one of the most extensive contemporary works in this field. It presents the issue as a comprehensive map from the physical properties of nanoplastic particles to their interaction with cells, tissues, organisms, and ecosystems. The report reveals that micro and nanoplastics are present in the air, water, soil, agricultural products, food chains, and even within the human body. The research compiled by the authors demonstrates that nanoplastic particles have been found in the placenta, lungs, liver, brain, and other organs. The report pays special attention to the ability of nanoplastics to cross the most well-protected biological barriers within the human body, the intestinal, placental, blood-brain, and other protective barriers. Once nanoplastics penetrate the cell, they trigger a cascade of destructive mechanisms that are today considered as critical threats: oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammatory reactions, and the disruption of cellular processes. The authors of this report pose a deeper question. Why do micro and nanoplastics behave this way? Why do they interact so actively with proteins? Why do they penetrate cells? The report identifies the electrical nature of nanoplastics as one of the key avenues for future research. The authors point out that the surface charge of nanoplastics alone, also known as the zeta potential, may not be sufficient to fully explain the particle's behavior. They formulate a research hypothesis suggesting a potentially more complex internal charge organization concerning the subsurface electrical structure of nanoplastics, dipole configurations, charge traps, and electret-like states. This is a particularly crucial point because it opens up entirely new perspectives on how we approach finding solutions. Large plastic waste can still be collected. However, once plastic breaks down into micro and nanoparticles that disperse across air, water, soil, organisms, and food chains, mechanical cleanup can no longer remove them all. This raises a more fundamental question. Is it possible not only to detect such particles, but also to understand how to reduce their electrostatically mediated bioreactivity? This is exactly why the report serves as a roadmap for the next stage of scientific inquiry and interdisciplinary research. Among the practical directions emphasized by the authors are the development of unified international monitoring standards, comparable measurement methods, a specific focus on the smallest fractions under 10 micrometers, the study of particle surface, aging, and charge, and the creation of broad interdisciplinary collaboration among toxicologists, clinicians, biophysicists, ecologists, material scientists, and analytical technology experts. We are used to asking the question, how much plastic has already entered the environment? But perhaps the next and far more important question is, what happens to plastic when it's no longer visible, and what should we do about it? The report, Nanoplastics, a systematic risk analysis for human health, ecosystems, and the environment, shows that nanoplastics represent a new form of systemic risk that must be recognized today at both the scientific and international public levels, before these particles become an even greater part of our environment and our lives.
Nanoplastic invisible threat and global risk. My name is Gabriela. I work as a primary care physician, and joining tonight is my colleague Alexander, who is a biochemist and bioinformatician. We would like to show you the outline of tonight's presentation, and now I would like to give the word to my colleague.
Thank you so much. I would like also to say that we are representative of ALLATRA Global Research Center. It's an international scientific organization who is dealing with current problems of our society. And one of these problems is the studying micro and nanoplastics. I think the problem is very acute, and just imagine taking a deep breath right now. Right now in this room, we have really a lot of particles that are releasing from this furniture, that are released from this nice couple here, and we are surrounded by plastics everywhere, even from our clothes. So like for decades, we viewed plastics as a sort of eyesore, like bottles on the beach. But even those of us who are truly immersed in this problem, who are really taking care of the future of humanity, unfortunately may not realize the true scale of what is really hidden, because the real problem is in what we don't see.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as you probably most of you here know, we have reached the point that micro and nanoplastics literally became integral part of us. Like Sasha mentioned, they are everywhere, in the air we breathe, in the food we eat, in the water we drink. And once it enters our bloodstream, it can circulate throughout the body, and it can actually get to all harmful organs. You can get into heart, into lungs, you can get into liver, kidneys, you can even cross placenta, and here it will obviously interact and cause some biological dysfunctions.
Yeah, to start the interaction, let's have a quick question for the audience. How many of you have really explored, studied the topic of MSD, micro and nanoplastic? Please raise your hand. I think that in our presentation, you will hear much more interesting information that you may not heard before.
And just to show the scale of the problem, because the microplastics are discussed quite extensively, but nanoplastics not as much. And what is micro, what is nano? Microplastics are larger than 1 micrometer and smaller than 5 millimeters. You can imagine them as large as an average cell, like red blood cell or bacterial size, and actually can be detected by regular microscopy. And nanoplastics are actually very, very tiny particles, smaller than 1 micrometer, and they can be as small as virus or even much smaller. And obviously cannot be detected by regular microscopy. We need like electron microscopy, Raman microscopy, and so on. So what is also important to know about it, it's not just the size, but it's also the properties, which are very important. And we'll talk about that later.
As you already know, the main reservoir of plastic is the ocean. And now let's watch a short video which will talk about this plastic integration in the ocean to see the really true scale of the problem that we are facing.
The ocean is the main reservoir of plastic accumulation. It already contains more than 200 million tons of plastic waste, and this amount continues to grow every day. It is important to understand that plastic does not disappear. Under the influence of sunlight, waves, salinity, and mechanical friction, it breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastics. Microplastics are plastic particles smaller than 5 millimeters in size, while nanoplastics are smaller than 1 micrometer, about 1,000 times thinner than a human hair. There are about 350 trillion microplastic particles in the surface layer of the ocean alone. Yet the real number is far greater.
So as we saw in this video, I would just like to have a short comment that we have over 200 million tons of plastic in our oceans. And like, if we can imagine, it's like a loaded truck is releasing the plastic every minute. But plastic doesn't biodegrade. That's the issue. It's just fragments.
You can see the little plastic cap on the screen, and you can see it starting to biodegrade to some pretty big particles, because we can see them. How many particles can this small cap produce if it breaks down to 5 nanometer particles?
Really, this figurative idea is that we have so much nanoplastic particles. If we can really take a model and split this one small cup, like in a 50 nanometer scale, we get really quintillion of particles. And like, if we can imagine that if the whole plastic will be splitted, every single liter of water would contain 286 million of these nanoscale particles. So that is why standard cleanup, in our opinion, is so difficult, because we are no longer trying to fish, like a needle from a haystack. We're trying to somehow get rid of dissolved sugar in a cup of tea. So because we cannot actually see these nanoplastic particles, and we have no means to really filter them out.
Right, we don't see the sugar, but we taste it in the cup. So the next question for you is, in your opinion, in what ways humans are exposed to nanoplastics?
Fibers from clothes,
Yes.
when we're washing. Tires, exactly.
Right.
It's also
Very good.
it's really a problem that we need to think about and need to collectively solve it.
And as we saw in the video, ocean is a large reservoir of nanoplastic particles, and every year 136,000 tons of microplastics are blown onto a land from the sea. And in a just 2-hour walk, you can actually inhale over 100,000 particles. And inside, where, like you guys mentioned, carpets, gloves, and other things around us, the numbers can be actually even higher. That means the indoor might be even more saturated.
So what is even more surprising that, and you also said it's written that our food is also spoiled, and the things that are previously considered as healthy, like fruits, vegetables, right now they are no longer can be considered in such a way, because of the processes that when the nanoplastic particles get in from the roots of the vegetables and fruits, they are getting into there, and then they're stored. Like when we see for all the studies that we have right now, that's why we have asked you, have you ever studied this problem? Because it's a thing to reconsider, and because plastic then will act, and we all, I think later on we'll talk about health implication. It can actually carry a lot of other toxins and heavy metals and areas we already have in soil further to our body. It acts like a transport.
So what was, for instance, personally for me, very surprising when I start learning more about this topic, that even all the food which I like and I thought is good for me and healthy for me, it's already containing all these micro nanoplastics. So is it really healthy? And now let's just watch video from Professor Ragusa, an Italian OBGYN. You probably guys already might know him.
There are 3 ways plastic gets into the body: through inhalation, through the skin, and through food. And what happens next? It enters the bloodstream. Until fairly recently, about 15 years ago, people thought plastic was inert. And in fact, if you look at these plastic pellets, not microplastics but larger macroplastics, even if you put them in water, they just sit there quietly. It seems like they don't interfere much with the environment. But once they break down into micro and nanoplastics, they get into the human body through those 3 pathways, enter the bloodstream, and from there reach all the parenchymal tissues, that is, the organs, kidneys, liver, heart, arteries, veins, placenta, breast milk.
Micro and nanoplastics have already become an inseparable part of the human body. They accumulate in the tissues of the intestines, heart muscles, and in the endocrine and reproductive organs, disrupting their functions. There isn't a single place in the human body they cannot penetrate.
We thank Dr. Ragusa for his very important discovery for all of us. And recently, I've noticed in my practice that I'm observing for instance, my patients. I was observing one important thing, like in respiratory diseases, patients used to have like a year or 2 years ago, the common flu would last up to 5 days, sometimes 7 days, and then they would be okay. And now, the last year, what I'm observing is that patients are coming back and they're sick for 3-4 weeks. And they're not getting better, and then continuously coming back with some problems, cough, chronic cough, and so on. So I start asking myself, like, is it possible that even the micro nanoplastics can be causing this?
You might actually wonder, we have dealing as humans with some really small nanoparticles for centuries, for millions of years. Like we are dealing with dust, soot, organic particles, and we have, so to say, evolutionary manual how to recognize these dust and soot and etc. and eliminate them. But plastic is a new material, and there is a crucial distinction that changes everything.
What is interesting about the key properties of plastic, especially nanoplastics, right? We are right now talking about nanoplastics. It's the size. As you guys already know, less than 1 micrometer. It's very, very small. It can get almost anywhere. Then, very well-known chemical additives, phthalates, bisphenols, and all these other chemical additives, which they are pretty well studied. Then hydrophobic properties are actually also a very important part of plastics. And the surface charge, it's another very important thing. So we would like to elaborate more about that surface charge in this presentation today.
And would like also to mention, like in my lab experience, we have dealt with nanoparticles of gold and titanium oxide. Like it's a typical way to study their influence on the health of animal models, on some cell cultures. And we have like really great insight from that time, from that lab, that the nanoscale and microscale properties, they are actually different from macroscale objects. So gold, in its normal, like in the ring form, have different properties than micro and nanoscale gold. So, and it's in our experiment showed that it blocked completely a lot of enzymes. And when we see the right now nanoscale nanoplastic particles, they have a so-called electric-like behavior. Electrolyte is a material that accumulates static electricity and hold this charge for extended time. So that means that surface charge, or in scientific literature, it's also called zeta potential, enhances interaction between these particles and like cells, organelles, so they can easily enter and reach our biomolecules like DNAs and proteins. And it's the smaller the particle, the stronger, and thus this interaction, it's really goes really deep inside to our most safest place in the cell, and causing a lot of harmful effects. And it's noted in the recent peer review articles, the plastic particles may impose significant environmental and health hazard, with surface charge playing a critical role in governing this behavior.
So now we'll talk about the health implications. As I was mentioning before, I work as a physician and I see that a lot of things are changing recently. We see a lot of patients, there's more cancers. Younger patients are actually getting more sick. There are a lot of chronic diseases, exacerbation of all different kinds of respiratory diseases, and it's really very concerning. And when I was studying this topic, what surprised me about the properties of nanoplastic was that it can, well, first of all, it's very small. So it's the very, very tiny size. And when it's smaller than 100 nanometers, it can actually pass directly through any membrane, right? Even via like passive diffusion. Then, of course, there are a lot of barriers in the human body which will not allow this because there's active transport and all this stuff. But because of this charge, which is interacting with the human cell, plus the size, it helps the nanoplastic get right in. And not just into the cytoplasm, it can actually get into the other organelles, like mitochondria. That's particularly concerning. Mitochondria, you might know, it's super important for us. It's like a power plant for a cell. If mitochondria is not working properly, the cell is not going to work properly. That means the organ is not going to work properly. Also, there are some studies suggesting that it can actually even cause DNA breakages. That's also particularly very concerning. Another interesting thing to me was that once the particle enters the blood, because of the charge, it gets coated by plasmatic proteins, lipids, and so on, because the way I imagine it, and now just this is figuratively speaking, right? I'm imagining it like on top of the plastic particle, there's plus. The plasmatic proteins are usually minus, so it will attract. It will code it, and this way, our immune system will not recognize this particle as a foreign particle. It will just travel unseen as a friend throughout our system, and it can get anywhere. So that's bad for us, right? And this way it can get anywhere. Another important thing is that this charge on top of the particle, because it's plus, and it's called electron transduction, it can actually pass this electron to the microbes, like bacteria. And what does that mean to us? If bacteria is supposed to live certain time, and now it encounters this plastic particle. This plastic particle gives it the extra electron. That means this bacteria is going to live for longer and gives it extra energy to do certain mutations. It can divide rapidly. It can even result in, producing more biofilm and thus result in antibiotic resistance, right? This is like very simple explanation, but if you dive deep into the topic, you might actually realize that all these mechanisms are already being described.
Yeah, I would like also to comment on one of the points that in my research career, I have studied neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer, Parkinson's in a research institute. And it's really astonishing that there are papers right now that showing clearly that nanoplastic particles can easily go through the blood-brain barrier, and they might be also a cause of these diseases. Like in typical research, like when I did it like 10 years ago, it was really hard to understand what is causing all these chronic diseases. So we see only the consequences. So we understand that it started 20 years ago, but we don't know what actually triggered it, how they are starting really. So we're just seeing the causes and trying to somehow cure the patient. So we really need to reconsider all fever health protocols. And I think we'll talk about it later. So we'll now go to another topic, because it's not only implicates our health, but also has atmospheric and ocean disruption. It's an area of active research right now, and what fact is already established that micronanoplastics do affect the water cycle. So what does it involve? Like, for example, water vapor in the air does not condense into raindrops on its own. It needs some particles like to start initiators, and then they can condensate around so-called condensation nuclei. And naturally, that was like sand, sea salt, again, soot, some aerosols. But nanoplastic are present in the air in large amounts. So I remember we have visited an observatory in Austria. It was really nice place, beautiful in the really clearest. And they have a laboratory that have tracked these nanoplastic particles. It's a uniquely European project that is the inventor. He did a filter that could catch even there in Alps through 3,106 meters. It was nanoplastic particle there. Means it rises all over the ocean. In our film, we have also show these excerpts from interview that through the atmosphere it goes very quickly. So in one place released, for example, in 2 days they have smelled in Austria the Hiroshima or some Canadian wildfire. So it's distributed very easily. And right now we understand that nanoplastic particles interfere again with some normal atmospheric and oceanic cycles. Yeah, so it's an area of further research. Yes, please continue.
Yes, and another very concerning thing to me is the ocean thermal conductivity. As we mentioned before, the millions of tons of plastics, they're present in the biosphere and constantly are breaking down, smaller and smaller particles, and they have this electrostatic charge, the surface charge. You can call it surface charge for a better understanding. And they concentrate in the ocean in the 3 main layers. They're at the bottom of the ocean, as you can see on the picture. They're at the surface, and they're in the middle, in the area of a thermocline, where water temperature is rapidly changes. And these particles can actually interact with the surface charge, to interact with the water molecules at the level of the hydrogen bonds. And what that means is a result that physical and chemical characteristics of the ocean water can actually change. And the heat dissipation into the atmosphere might slow down. The way I imagine it is sort of like you put a blanket, like on top of the layer of a blanket. And thus, the ocean is not able to get rid of the heat and might be contributing to the heating of the ocean itself.
Yeah, so if we go to the next slide. So what are the current solutions that we have in order to really get rid? Because once you think that, oh, something is in my body, I really need to get rid of it. We know that there are some methods like plasmapheresis, hemabsorption. We have filtration devices, hiking different methods, detox.
But, okay, question for you guys. Do you think we can detox our body from nanoplastics? I myself, when I started dealing with this topic, first what I did, I got rid of the plastic chopping boards and tried to eliminate the plastic as much as I could. But then, if you think about how much plastic has been already produced right now, and it's going to be, I'm calling it decaying, decaying for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're still, even if we stop the production today, we'll be still dealing with quintillions particles of micro and nanoplastics, which are being released already and are going to be released. So just think about that. So we have to really think about some maybe other solution.
Yeah, and we also would like to comment that right now plastic is deeply integrated in our modern life. So it's when we really think about the full plastic life cycle, and of course we have heard these ideas that we can try to get rid of it, we can use it less, but let's think about medicine, let's think about our infrastructure. Right now we cannot do that. It will just fail and collapse. We have a lot of examples in our history when some decisions, like a hard decision, will be made, but we need to really think about it thoughtfully. And right now we can just admit that right now here on the conference, we have a lot of plastics. And we could not just imagine this room without plastic. What we left? So we can just only admit it, and full prohibition is not simply possible in foreseeable future. And it's economically disadvantageous either at the level of individual countries or in the level of international economy.
Well, not just that. Working in a medicine, a lot of things we use is plastic, right? We use it as stents, as catheters, pretty much, patients already have right now in them plenty of different stents and things, like in GI tract for biliary stenosis, heart, it's a little bit maybe different than drug-eluting stents, but there's a lot of plastic already, which has some advantages, right? So it's not like we can say, okay, let's stop all the plastic production right now. I mean, we can, but is it going to help? how is this going to solve the problem of the plastic, which is already right now disintegrating? It's not. So that's why we are having this presentation, just to show also another scope of this plastic pollution.
Yeah, and that's why also like plasmapheresis and hem absorption might not help, because everything that we'll do, it also contains plastic. We just like all the plastic tubes and everything that we have, no guarantee that they will again be released in the plastic.
Out of the cells, of
Yeah.
course.
So if we go to the next solution, like recycling of plastic, the paradox actually that mechanical stress produces more micro and nanoplastic particles. So when we try to recycle it, we'll just like shred particles faster, and they will shred faster, then it will just remain intact, like, or virgin plastic. So we're not solving the problem, we're just accelerating it.
So I guess we all understand that we cannot really clean this up because it's tiny and it's a lot of it. We cannot filter it out from our body. We already understood that. And we cannot recycle our way out because we are just going to create even more nanoplastics in the recycling process. So what can we actually do?
We have recently held a presentation with the European Union on 24th of February. We talked to the European Parliament members that we really need to work on unified standards, first of all, because we need standards for monitoring particles under 10 microns. Each research group, like right now, uses their own methods, own classification criteria. So we need to really unify it in order to compare data from different countries, different labs, and really have a comprehensive picture of nanoplastic distribution across the whole world. And next.
And then we also lack like standardized protocols for human health. We have no like unified methodology for assessing the effects of nanoplastics on the human body. And without these unified protocols, we cannot really obtain reliable, reproducible results for making informed decisions. And another important thing is that we also still lack comprehensive longitudinal studies evaluating the multifaceted impact of these nanoplastics, like the causality. Like, yes, we know the plastic is there, but what's the causality? So that's another thing which we miss. And this gap, but is actively being addressed. There are a lot of emerging initiatives globally, which is great. And then another important thing is there are no requirements for including nanoplastics in climate research. Scientific climate models, they still do not account for this factor. We study the influence of CO2, methane, aerosols, but we ignore nanoplastics, which can actually significantly probably affect climate process as well. And this is a serious gap which we need to also address.
We have also talked about the surface charge. And we know that it's a problem that both in our biosphere and as well as in our body, and there are risks that should be mitigated. And we currently have no practical means of altering their chemical composition, size, shape, or like really to do it at scale. And one potentially feasible approach, at least in principle, however, like it's no influence, is to influence the surface charge of these particles. The surface charge of micro nanoparticles, they really play an important role. And we would like to really state it again. And, like in determining their behavior in biological systems. And like all these naturally occurring particles, they also carry surface charge, but the charge associated with plastic particles, it's really appears to differ in its persistence and interaction dynamics. So we really need to trigger and research in this area, and because it's really remains stable in multiple environments, including air and biological fluids. One important point that we would like to make is a shift of paradigm. Like for this reason, international research should be really focused on developing methods to really try to understand how we can able to reduce or neutralize the surface charge of MNPs. And achieving this objective would require coordinated, large-scale international collaboration. We have actually also examples that we have in our history that we already made. For example, Human Genome Project. A lot of countries just get into this goal with clear, that we really need to do that, and we were able to collectively solve this issue. Same goes to this Montreal Protocol and bans of CCFs.
And we were suggesting or thinking that European representatives would actually consider proposing a UN protocols for MMPs neutralization at the next climate summit. And they could also initiate the creation of an international research coalition with EU participation. It's pretty much, we all know it's here, we all know it's bad for us, and now we all have to come together and actually do something about it.